Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is YPP's presidential candidate and former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Dr. Kingsley Moghalu. Since his last time on the show, he has picked a running mate and launched his presidential campaign with a free copy of his ebook, Build, Innovate and Grow, My Vision for Our Country. Today, he'll be sharing more on his vision for Nigeria in 2019. Good morning. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, morning. Good to have you here.
Morning,
Nice
everyone.
to
It's good to have you back on the morning show.
Thank you.
The last time we spoke to you, you were in the Abuja studio.
Absolutely.
And now you are in the Lagos studio.
Live.
Then you were an aspirant. Now you are a candidate.
Now you're a candidate.
Right?
I think if I was a candidate even then.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, even when we spoke. Yeah.
okay, you were the candidate of your party. Yeah,
Yes.
Sure. But since then, I've been hearing this phrase, Moghalunomics. What is that all about, you know?
Well, Moghalunomics is a phrase used by some commentators to indicate my views on economic transformation as we should have it in this country. I have some original thoughts about economic development and economic transformation, the first of which we need to understand in this country is the difference between economic growth, economic development, and economic transformation. Our policymakers don't understand this, and they keep getting confused, chasing only economic growth statistics, which, you know, they're necessary, but in and of themselves do not create development. They do not create structural economic transformation. That's why we still have a lot of poor people, and we're the poverty capital of the world. So that's part of what Moghalunomics is, and part of it is also my vision about how to, curtail unemployment in this country by focusing on the three secrets of successful capitalism, which is property rights, innovation, and capital. I, as president of Nigeria, elected on the platform of the Young Progressives Party, will be setting up a 1 trillion naira venture capital fund in 2019. And this fund will invest in millions of new businesses for unemployed young men and women.
How do you hope to raise this 1 trillion naira bond you talk about?
Yeah, it's actually very easy. The first thing to do is to take out the 500 billion naira social intervention fund that the government budgets for the past 2 years, or has been budgeting for the past 2 years, which is, a totally unproductive venture, a citadel to waste and corruption and
This
cronyism.
has drawn more children to school.
What's that?
The feeding program, for instance, under the social investment program, has drawn more
what
children to
feeding
school.
program? Those are propaganda claims.
Really?
Let me explain to you. When you bring out the 500 billion from the government fund, and you bring 500 billion naira from the private sector, it's going to be a public-private partnership. Then we set up this fund, which will create real wealth and create millions of new jobs. Now, that is economic thinking. The problem with this government that we have in Nigeria today is that they like to be populist, but at the end of the day, they're just recycling poverty. You see, what we need in Nigeria is not this thing they say they're doing, which is just a way to paddy APC contractors. What we need in Nigeria is a social security program. That's a different thing, which my government will be working on separately.
Well, I mean, we've had some other presidential candidates on this program.
Sure.
And we've been looking at their manifestos.
Sure.
And we've also used the opportunity to ask them whether they've seen President Buhari's manifesto and whether they have also seen former Vice President Atiku Abubakar's Make Nigeria Great Again policy document.
Yes.
I don't know whether you've assessed that. I would like you to comment on those two documents and compare and contrast with your own vision.
Yeah.
This is your own manifesto, right?
Yeah.
This book.
Absolutely.
I don't think you have their own kind of document.
Build, innovate, and grow.
You've given Nigerians a whole book to go and read.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, but
because it's a more comprehensive approach. That's why I wrote the book. Instead of just slapdash policies that are for campaigns, this is a book for all time. It's a vision for Nigeria for all
build,
time.
innovate, and grow.
Yeah, so
vision for our country.
my first comment about the APC government's next level, I think that's what they call it,
That's
right?
what they call
it. Is that it is really the next level of the descent into poverty. That's what I think. I don't see anything original. It's just political promises, the usual thing. They talked about the EPRG trying to grow the economy at 7% a year by 2020. Well, we're very far away from that. I think we know that. So I'm not very impressed by the next level. And of course, let's not talk about the controversy over whether or not the concept was plagiarized. And it shows you the absolute lack of originality in this government. Whether or not it's technically plagiarism or not, it's very clear that it's very similar to something some other people did in the UK. So most likely, in my view, was just a copied design. Let's move to Atiku Abubakar's document. Now, the problem I have with Atiku Abubakar's document is that it again overpromises. You know, people make all these flowery promises. He talks about 900 billion naira economy. That would mean growth of 12% a year consistently. I don't see us being able to achieve that within a short range up to, I think, 2025, he says. We can likely grow by upper single digits. In my government, that is what is going to happen, eventually getting into the double digits. But to assume right off the bat that you're going to be growing at double digits to get to 900 billion, no. Again, the Atiku document makes the mistake that a lot of economic thinking makes in this country. It's a focus on GDP growth. It's not a focus on transforming the society, transforming millions of people from poverty into the middle class. It's not a focus on economic development. He talks about selling off the NNPC. I don't know whether that's in his document or not, but I've heard him say he will sell off 90% of the NNPC. I just can't believe that, because I don't think that is the correct way to go. I think the NNPC should be partially privatized. As I myself said several months ago, I was the first presidential aspirant at the time to talk about the need to privatize the NNPC 49% or 51%, with the other side going to the private sector. And when I talk about privatization, I give you the details of the concept, how it will work. The problem with Nigeria's politicians in the APC and the PDP is that they come and make these flowery statements without explaining to Nigerians. When you say you will privatize to the NNPC, where will you privatize it? Who's buying the NNPC? So I say that we will put the shares of the NNPC on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That's where it will be sold. And at least 10% of the ownership must be for the host communities. So I'm very clear when I talk about these things. The purpose of privatizing the NNPC is to make sure that it is efficient. It's not to sell off Nigeria's crown jewels to friends and cronies. No.
But you see, I've had many commentators say that all presidential candidates sound more or less the same. Maybe there may be variations in terms of the details, but they're talking about the same thing. Security, jobs, infrastructure, tackling poverty, and here in your book, in Vision, I think Vision 13, you are talking about internal security, law and order.
Yes, absolutely.
We've just had a president, a sitting president, who is a retired general, and under his watch, the other day, 100 soldiers were slaughtered. He has met with his service chiefs now twice in the last 2 weeks. They've not been able to handle the situation.
Meetings.
You are not even a soldier.
Yes.
So what's your vision, this Vision 13? What is it really about?
Thank you. Thank you very much. The reason why some people may think that presidential candidates sound very much alike is because actually we all know the problems that Nigeria faces. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know what the real issues are. So you must forgive us. But the difference, and you must be very discerning, is the solution to the problem. Listen very carefully to all the presidential candidates and listen to me, and you cannot say we sound alike. Because when I speak, I know exactly, I don't make promises. I have a plan, and I have a plan to execute the plan.
Well, I don't think it means that you all sound
alike.
You all have the same goal. You all have the same vision. You all have the same
No, I don't think we all have the same vision.
I mean,
we discuss the same topics, but we don't have the same vision. That's a big difference.
But on the issue of security,
on the issue of security, let me address that specifically. First of all, I want to just say how sad and sorry I am for the families of our fallen soldiers. It's always a sad thing when, you know, our soldiers or soldiers in any country are the subject of terrorist attacks. And I don't want to, you know, get too political about it because I want to focus, first of all, on the human loss. But you asked me about security, which is a broader question. Now, it is a tragedy of monumental proportions that a man who was a general in the army promised to secure Nigeria, and security in this country has gotten worse under his leadership. It's not just Boko Haram, it's the Fulani headsmen, and so many other things. So the problem is, number one, that it is clear the hood does not make the monk. Please do not be deceived by the fact that somebody is a general, somebody is a civilian. I will secure Nigeria far better as president of Nigeria in 2019 than General Muhammadu Buhari has done. Here's why. Number one, I will come to national security with a much better conceptual understanding of what national security means. The understanding of security in Buhari's government is a tunnel vision. It's just about Boko Haram. But national security is many things. Like I said, it's Boko Haram, it's herdsmen. It is the ever-increasing rate of poverty in this country. It has national security implications. It's about cyber security. It's about the borders. So that's number one. If you don't understand the problem fully, you will not be able to solve it. So that's first of all. Secondly, I will bring a much more professional approach to the management of Nigeria's security. If you look at the security chiefs in this country, 99% of them come from one part of the country and are of one religion. That tells you that the consideration for the leadership in the security part of our government architecture is not professionalism. It is parochialism. The government of President Buhari is not securing Nigeria. They are securing his regime. And he thinks that his kith and kin, his ethnic and religious kith and kin, are the only ones he can trust. This is one of the reasons why security is breaking down in this country. Nobody talks about it. Number three, I will have as president the political will to secure Nigeria. You see the president, when the headsmen attack, you will see him, you know, being evasive, making apologies, turning himself into a prayer warrior. You know, when you know, we elected you to secure this country. We didn't elect you to pray, you know. So the point is that there needs to be political will. No matter whose ox is God, we must secure our citizens. That's number three. Number four, border security is important. Our borders in this country are not secure. I, as president, will secure Nigeria's borders. And finally, I, as president, will establish and create a completely new 21st century police force with 1.5 million men and women over a period of 4 years.
So you've spoken about security on a broader base.
Yeah.
But let me take you up on the recent killings, because you tweeted, you had a series of tweets. I want to take you up on one of them where you said that the military architecture is deeply flawed and needs a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
I want you to understand what you meant by that. Are you calling for the change of service chiefs? What exactly did you mean?
The service chiefs should be changed. That is number one. But the military architecture is deeply flawed for the following reasons. First of all, it is very clear that our military have a problem with modern weapons. Meanwhile, billions of naira are voted for the budget for these things. And whenever incidents like this happen, we find out that our military are not very well equipped. That's number one. Two, professionalism in terms of their ability to gather intelligence in a preventive manner is very weak. So the Boko Haram people keep upending our military. They keep, you know, they keep ambushing them. What does this say about the readiness and the preparedness of our military forces? Battle can never be avoided in a military situation, yes, but we need to see that our military are equipped, that they're capable, that emergency response is quick and efficient. These are the kinds of things that tell you whether or not a military architecture is working or not.
Recently, you attended a conference, a
Yes.
summit, Handshake Across Nigeria.
Oh, yes, that's right.
We had two of the gentlemen behind that on this program. Okay. And I'd asked them then, well, it used to be Handshake Across the Niger. Now it's Handshake Across Nigeria. But as someone who participated in that summit,
yes,
what were the takeaways for you?
I think the takeaways from the summit were very clear. Number one, the reason that it's Handshake Across Nigeria instead of Handshake Across the Niger is that it's an expansion of the original concept of the conference, which means that they're now looking at the whole country, not just at the southeast and the southwest. You know, there was the representative of the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi, present at the conference, and a number of other dignitaries from around the country. So the expansion of the concept, which I think is good, it's a nation-building initiative to discuss with ourselves and shake hands and say, look, let's build Nigeria together while we can before it is too late. I've always said it. Nigeria is not yet a nation. It's a nation waiting to be born. Right now, it's just a country. As president, my biggest vision for this country is to build it into a nation. So the Handshake Conference, Professor Wole Soyinka was the keynote speaker. Another important outcome was a unanimous or near unanimous agreement that without restructuring Nigeria, we're going nowhere. So I think those were the major takeaways from the conference. And we could see from the audience that the citizens of Nigeria feel that restructuring Nigeria, constitutional restructuring, is an idea whose time has come.
All right,
well, I guess addressing the security challenge will probably be part of that restructuring.
Of course.
But let me take you back again to this security thing.
Yes.
I'm surprised that earlier on when you were talking about different dimensions of security, you didn't mention food security. Which seems to be a major problem also here.
That indeed is.
But, you know, this issue of terrorism,
Yes.
in the twilight months
Yeah.
of the Jonathan administration, that administration sought help
Yes.
from elsewhere.
Yes.
There were South Africans, you know, who provided some form of technical expertise.
Yes.
I think one South African recently was saying that, look, this administration has not made use of, you know, that kind of input
Yes.
from other sources.
Yes.
As president,
Yes.
will you consider it necessary maybe to seek outside technical assistance? Do you think that that's really where the problem lies in terms of what we're witnessing now?
Yes, the real problem is to look inwards and regenerate our armed forces, regenerate their ethos. Nigeria's armed forces are focused on the wrong things. Nigeria's civilian space has become increasingly militarized. You have Operation Python Dance, Operation Ayodele, Operation Crocodile Smile. I mean, think about smiling crocodiles. That's a scary vision. You know, so it's because our internal security of the police force has failed. So the armed forces are increasingly being deployed to things that should be done by the police force. Because of that, their focus is just in the wrong place. The focus of the army should be to defend Nigeria and our borders, to make us secure. The police should be strengthened and equipped. That's why I have the approach I have in my vision to national security. A new 21st century police force is absolutely essential. We have 300,000 policemen today.
350,000.
350,000. We are 200 million people. This country has serious security challenges. How do you think? And 1/3 of that 350,000 are guarding big men. Maybe they're guarding you too, Ruben. I don't know.
Or maybe they're guarding you
Well,
too.
I'm a presidential candidate. So I'm, you know, I have security.
You're entitled to VIP security.
I'm entitled to security from the state.
Yes.
You see. So that's the point. If we focus on our police so that they can control our internal security, then the army should be professionalized to focus on external threats. Another issue is the relations with our neighboring countries, Chad, you know, Cameroon, and so on. Another issue, Niger Republic and Benin, and so on. You know, the army should be focused on cross-border military intelligence. We don't see evidence that this is very strong.
Well, there is a multinational joint task force in place that meets regularly.
That's true, but how effective?
There is also a forum of the defense chiefs and national security advisors.
That is true. But the question is effectiveness. Something is wrong with the chain of effectiveness. And that's why Boko Haram keeps doing what it has been doing. And it's really so you asked, would I seek external help? Mm-hmm. I would seek external collaborations, if necessary, to backstop us as an emergency measure to make sure that Nigerians are secure once I become president. While over 2 years or so, we totally reprofessionalize the armed forces.
All right, so now you have chosen your running mate,
Yes.
and she's a female, 37-year-old Uma Getso.
Yes.
Yeah, so why the choice of
Uma.
Uma?
Uma Mama is a very, very interesting woman. She has a very powerful vision for this country, for youth especially, and for women. She's very capable. She's somebody who cares very deeply about Nigerian citizens. So I found her really just to be the perfect complement to me in terms of the vision that I have for this country. She's been an activist. She comes from Kano State, and she has been an advocate for girl-child education in the northern states. So I just found her as the perfect complement. Also, my choice of a woman vice president is a commitment to my vision of gender empowerment and gender equity in this country. I was told by many people, don't choose a woman as your vice president. They told me, if you choose her, if you choose a woman from the north, you will not win. Because the conventional wisdom is that in the northern part of the country, women have no rights and no standing. I said, well, that's all the more reason why we have to do it. So we have to make the point clear that it's time that our society began to change, to empower women. And they're a very important part of our society. Women give birth to children. Women nurture life. Women take care of our homes. And they're 51% of the population.
Right, on Vision 8, you said, to unlock Nigeria's growth potential, the voices of women should be heard and considered at the highest level of decision-making and in the spheres of our society. So how do you intend to
do that?
Actually bridge this gap in gender?
Number one is this, that my cabinet will be 50-50. One man, one woman. One man, one woman. 50-50 gender parity in the Kingsley Moghalu. Oh, yes. Okay. Watch out. Kingsley Moghalu presidency, 50-50 gender parity.
Are you being inspired by what's going on in Ethiopia?
No, I had this inspiration before what happened in Ethiopia happened.
Well, see.
Now, the point I wanted to make is that, 50-50 gender parity is very important and very achievable. The national gender policy requires 30% of female representation. I'm going 20% above that. So that's number one. Number two, we are going to strengthen gender participation through education. Education is very important. Public education that attacks the root causes of gender bias and gender discrimination. We have to do that. We don't often do that. Also, men will play a very important role in gender mainstreaming under my presidency. Women often gather themselves in rooms and cuss out men. But that doesn't solve any problem. If men are the oppressors, then you must engage with them. And so we have to bring men to the table for men to see, I am a man. And I often say to the women, I'm your man. Because I believe in gender equity just as much as you do. So also, under my presidency, you are going to see a 100% doubling of the number of women who are running for positions in the National Assembly.
Well, you have addressed some of these issues in Chapter 8, Vision 8 of your book, which is also your manifesto. And you refer to women as missionaries. I don't know whether you are aware of Chiedu's The Anatomy of Female Power. Because oftentimes when we have guests on this program and they say, I'll do this for women, I'll do that for women, Chiedu says women are already even too powerful.
Yes, I'm aware. Chiedu, of course, is a very brilliant intellectual, as you and I know. His first book was called The West and the Rest of Us. Black predators, white slave traders, and the African whatever. And then he wrote this Anatomy of Female Power in the 1990s. Now, look, the truth is, every gender is unique. Men have their own strengths and weaknesses. Women have their strengths and weaknesses. But together, we complement each other. So I don't subscribe to the view, that women are powerful simply because of anatomy. I think it kind of, doesn't respect other things that women bring to the table. And so I don't want to hold those kinds of stereotypical views that women are already too powerful. Women are powerful, yes, more powerful than they sometimes admit.
Yeah, those who say women are
true.
already too powerful,
I don't
they
think
say,
so.
well, when you give them political power,
then that's too much.
You will tilt the gender balance too heavily in favor of women.
It is the same argument for discrimination in the political sphere, that some people control the economic sphere, some people control the political sphere. If you allow the people from the economic, quote-unquote, sphere to come and take political power, then it's too much. These are just arguments to suppress people.
All right, I want to take you back on this social intervention program, and that you want to take money out of the budget for that. I want to know why it is that it's that program that you want to take money out of, because apparently a lot of people have benefited, especially women, from this program. And you also mentioned that you want to create this social security the way that we have it in the US, correct?
Yes.
But I want to know why
The reason is because it is a populist attempt that is not solving any real programs. My government will bring far more structurally competent and firm foundations for things like social security in this country. We will be creating jobs, not paying people to be unemployed. Why do you promise people that you're paying them 5,000 naira for having no jobs? How many of them have received it? As far as I know, unemployment is getting worse. 10 million people have lost their jobs in the last 3 years. So you see, we must distinguish propaganda from reality.
I keep asking this question
yes, that's right.
because I am concerned about the people that are poor and the people that are
and I'm telling
I'm
you,
talking about like the immediate benefits.
I'm telling you about my plans for those people that are far superior in terms of public policy. You know, for example, you say you are running a social intervention fund. You bring out 500 billion every year, right? But I know, I go around this country. I have been in about 30 states interacting with ordinary people in town halls. I haven't seen one person who benefited from that program. Please, there's a lot of propaganda dished out by this government. Many of their claims have been found to be patently false. The vice president made some humongous claims about how much they're spending on school feeding, and people just quickly did the numbers and found that to be ridiculous. So, I'm not easily hoodwinked because, and of course I care for the poor. When I become president, we're going to set up a fund for widows in this country. Anybody, especially women below a certain income threshold, that's part of my social commitment. You see, when people lose their husbands, women are already, kind of marginalized enough in the economic sphere. And many of them, especially poor women in the villages and in the lower parts of urban dwellings, they lose their husbands and poverty becomes ruinous for them. And they become exploited and all that. We are going to take care of that sort of thing. But it's going to be a more forward-looking, intelligent policy than just populist promises that yield no real economic benefit. To close that fund or to redeploy it to creating economic wealth for a lot of women and a lot of poor people and a lot of unemployed people, and finding other ways to, close social protection gaps is a far more intelligent way to go.
Since we're still talking about women, let me just ask you, because this also coincides with, yesterday was the International Day Against Violence Against Women, Elimination of Violence Against Women, and we have a week also 2 weeks celebrating that.
That's right.
I hear phrases like allow them, give them power, being used when it comes to women. And, the fact remains that there are not a lot of women in politics. And so isn't that the crux of the matter, really? So when you say you are going to have 50-50, so it's like a handout. Are you doing this as a necessity, or you're doing it as to fulfill all righteousness?
All righteousness, no. I'm doing it because it comes from the bottom of my soul. I'm doing it because women matter, and I have grown up knowing and believing that. That's why I'm doing it. This is not politics. This is something that has to be done. Now, if you see a problem, you must take action to solve it. My approach to gender equity is not tokenism. And that's why I'm telling you that just the 50-50 gender parity in the cabinet is just the beginning of the gender policy. I've told you that we will use public education to address the root causes of why we discriminate against women. What I'm saying, because it goes into our minds and tries to change the way we think about women. I think that's even more important. And I don't believe in tokenism. We will not appoint people to positions just because they are women. You have to be competent, you have to be capable. But I know that there are many competent and capable women in Nigeria.
Your book also talks about institutions.
Yes, absolutely.
You say institutions matter.
Yes.
Now, one of those things we've been hearing forever
Yes.
in Nigeria since the return to democracy.
Absolutely.
And the question I ask is, yes, institutions are managed by people.
Yes.
Now, where are you going to get the Nigerians that will transform those institutions?
Yes, that's right.
Given the nature, the culture,
Yes.
the ethical
Yes.
orientation of the average
society.
Nigerian. That's one part of the question.
Yeah.
The second part is, you've talked about the police, you've talked about the armed forces.
Yeah.
Which institutions are you likely to prioritize
Yes.
for reform, for
Yes.
transformation, as a matter of urgency, and
Thank
why?
you. Yeah, why? Oh, that's very good. Now, look, if we study the political and economic history of countries that are doing well, economically, democracy is flourishing, you will find out that the secret of their success is independent institutions. If you read the history of the United Kingdom, you will see that there was a time when the kings and queens had absolute power, what we call the divine right of kings. And civil wars were fought when kings refused to let go of certain powers to parliament. Even the creation of parliament was part of the development of institutions in the United Kingdom. So institutions that are independent and strong are necessary to check absolute power and to hold politically elected leaders to accountability and to help in effective public administration. In Nigeria, for example, look at the rule of law. The president of Nigeria and his government today have refused to obey court orders in a number of cases, glaring, naked disregard for the rule of law. What does that mean? It means that you are inviting anarchy. You don't have to wonder why there's so much unrest today in Nigeria, because many people feel that the government is just not accountable. So I would prioritize the question of immunity for political office holders is a very important issue. I think they have too much immunity, and that needs to be curtailed so that they feel a bit exposed and their conduct will come under scrutiny. Do you see what I'm saying? Number two, I would look at institutions such as the central bank, institutions such as the EFCC. You see, I will set the EFCC free. The fight against corruption is failing because it's a political football that people are playing and pretending to be fighting corruption. I saw somebody made a joke about Atiku. It showed him with President Buhari when Atiku was in the APC and says, here is Atiku Abubakar before he became corrupt. So it's just a joke, but it tells you. Now, I will set the EFCC free, and the EFCC will not be reporting to the presidency.
Okay.
That will enable the fight against economic crimes and corruption to actually proceed on a proper professional basis and stop using it as a political tool. That is a very weak institution. The central bank, in my time, when Sanusi Lamido Sanusi was the governor, was an independent central bank. That is why we were able to achieve all the reforms we achieved. I personally, as deputy governor of the Central Bank for Operations, led the introduction of the bank verification number, the BVN. Many people don't know it, and this government is actually trying to claim credit for it, and I find that amusing. We stabilized the banking system after the global financial crisis because the central bank had the institutional powers to do so without interference from politicians. And the economy was better served by it. So these are examples of, the police force, the reform of the police, which is my absolute number one priority in terms of institutional, development. We don't have a police force. And that's going to be one example of something I'll focus on. We know police, look, our soldiers, people demonstrate, they shoot them. But you and I have been to civilized countries. First of all, it's not the military that are on the streets, it's the police. That's because the police are trained and equipped. And you see them with their shields. So if people are throwing stones and all that, they can protect themselves. Does that happen in Nigeria? No. Instead, they shoot civilians dead. Because, first of all, it's the wrong institution on the streets. Secondly, they're not properly trained in terms of managing civil, military, or civil and law enforcement relationships. So there's a lot of work to be done. Now, you asked me where we will find the people. Oh, God, how could you ask that question, Ruben? In Nigeria, Nigeria is overflowing with people who know what to do, but they are not given the opportunity to do it because we have political leaders who are not interested in looking for those types of people. I was invited from Switzerland, where I was running my own global strategy and risk management consulting firm, to come back as deputy governor of the central bank. I was headhunted.
We're talking about the central bank. The
Yes.
central bank has been in the news lately.
Okay.
Yeah. How do you assess how the central bank, under your successors, managed that issue of MTN and all of that?
Well,
if you were still, in that central bank, what would you have advised?
Yes. Well, look, the central bank's controversies and issues are many. But there is a conundrum that I observed when I was a regulator. A lot of big companies don't manage their regulatory risk effectively. They play fast and loose, thinking that the fact that they are big shields them. If you want to hit them, some people will come up and start arguing, oh, but if you hit them, it will affect the economy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's happened in this case.
It's happened in this case. So now you start seeing all sorts of compromises and things like that, and it all begins to look very politicized. This is the first time I have seen the Attorney General of the Federation being involved in central bank matters. In my time, it never happened.
Taxation matters.
So our Attorney General is really an all-overreaching Attorney General. He's into tax, he's into central bank issues, but the rule of law, which is his primary job, is actually not going very well, only in Nigeria. So I think, first of all, that big companies or companies operating in the financial space must manage their regulatory risk. And they cannot hide behind the economic consequences of their actions not to do the right thing. We've seen it in America. We've seen it in the UK. Banks are hit with billions of dollars in fines if they flout the laws.
But you say Godwin Emefiele, the current CBN governor, has more or less ceded its independence to other actors within the system. Because we're blaming the Attorney General for being overreaching. Is it because we have a weak central bank governor?
It is very clear. I'm on record. If you think I'm going to hide from that question, I will not. I am on record. The Central Bank of Nigeria has become a political football since the present presidency. You can quote me on it. Yes.
Well, you talked about corruption.
Yes.
You said you will make EFCC independent.
Yes.
Now, the present government claims what EFCC has been able to achieve as one of the major highlights of the last 3.5 years. And you recall the other day when President Jonathan publicly presented his book, the issue about corruption became a major issue for contest between the past president and the present president.
Yes.
So what's your take on all of this?
What's my take is that, as usual, corruption is a political football in Nigeria. We are not fighting corruption. We're not serious about fighting corruption. We are serious about pretending to be fighting corruption. How do you fight corruption? You fight corruption first by addressing the value system issue, because that is fundamental. The value system in this country has been completely eroded. Young children grow up. If you ask them what you want to do in life, in my time, we would say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, they will tell you, I want to be a politician. And you ask him why. It's because he will tell you, oh, Uncle this comes here with 3 jeeps. Do you understand? This is what leads to a mentality that feeds corruption. We have a political industrial complex in this country, which has become the biggest business in town. Now, as president...
Bigger than religious...
that's another industry, quite frankly. Now, as president, I will introduce the teaching of ethics in the educational system in Nigeria so that young people grow up knowing what is right and what is wrong. It will help a lot in the fight against corruption, and you actually strike the problem at its root. Number 2, accountability for acts of corruption must be impartial. My own fight against corruption as president from 2019 will start from within my government, in the YPP government. So it's not going to be leaving the people around me and then going to focus on people who might have been opposing me in elections. That's just flaky. And 3, we need to bring transparency and a proactive approach to fighting corruption. There are, IT and transparent processes that you can put in place. We did a lot of that at the central bank with the BVN and with all kinds of payment systems reforms that we did that made it a bit more difficult. Somebody, let me tell you what happened when I was deputy governor of the central bank. A businessman and a political godfather in Anambra State ran into my in-law, one of my brother's in-law, and told him, go and warn that your brother, Kingsley Moghalu. They're introducing POS. Does he think we're in America? You can't give bribe with POS.
I'm sure these days they give bribe with POS.
Well, he said you can't give bribe with POS. Why is he making life unnecessarily difficult? Please go and warn him. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's just a joke. It's to tell you that there are ways of fighting corruption that are systemic. You can never completely eradicate corruption. You find it even in the advanced countries, but it's at the periphery. It's marginal. In Nigeria, corruption works on 4 legs.
Let me ask you about the rising debt profile of the country,
Sure.
because subsequent finance ministers have warned about this. But when the government keeps attacking to say, we spend so much on infrastructure, the wages of the nation take so much of this. How are you going to tackle what is your take on the rising debt profile, and how are you going to tackle it?
Yeah.
And then in your opening statement, you talked about economics of housing deficits and all of that. I want you to touch on that as well.
Yeah. Now, the first thing I want to tell you about foreign debt is that once I become president in 2019, we're going to have a moratorium on foreign borrowing. We're going to stop foreign borrowing. Why?
Okay.
Because it is unnecessary. It is the lazy man's economics. When you cannot manage your fiscal policy effectively enough to generate revenue internally. Nigeria is 200 million people with a big economy, and you cannot generate your revenue internally, it means you're not doing something right. 1, fiscal policy is based on 2 things, taxation and mainly debt management. The economy is not strong enough to sustain the level of foreign debt. Over 60% of all the revenues Nigeria earns today go to repaying our foreign debt. Another 20, 30% goes to paying salaries of civil servants. What's left for development? Nothing. And so they find themselves compelled to go again and borrow more. So it becomes a cycle that is putting the future of our young people in this country at risk. Because all these debts they're taking, now who go pay?
So what about the Chinese loans? Some of them seem to have interest-free agreements.
Please.
Nothing is free.
Nothing is free.
Anyway, you address this issue of the debt profile.
Yes.
And whether it's GDP or whatever ratio it is they're
we
talking
did in the
about.
last interview.
At great length. But infrastructure.
Yes.
Last time we were unable to talk about the infrastructure deficit.
Yeah.
And in this book, you refer to it as the infrastructure conundrum.
Yes.
Why is it a conundrum?
It's a conundrum because the government policy approach to infrastructure is wrong. As president of Nigeria, my approach to infrastructure for a country as big as Nigeria is that large-scale infrastructure should be done mainly on the basis of public-private partnerships so that government funds are free for a lot of other things like social support programs and the venture capital fund. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you use the PPP model for major urban projects, they can recover their money. We know, we've seen it in Lagos. That's the approach. The second Niger Bridge was supposed to be a public-private partnership, but this government changed it. The reason they changed these things, I'm sorry to say, they like governments to award contracts because politicians get rich from that process. That's why they approach the infrastructure, and that's why nothing gets done. The second point about infrastructure is that I am going to take a project and risk management approach to infrastructure management in Nigeria. Okay. We're going to get project management companies to help us to monitor all infrastructure projects. Within 2 years of becoming president, I will finish all the federal roads under construction.
Within 2 years?
Within 2 years. We will complete all federal roads under construction. Because
in spite of the rainy season, because the excuse we usually get is that during the rainy season, you can't do much.
You know, I am just laughing. This is not the place, like I tell you, when I laugh in Wazobia. You know, this is not the only country where it rains. I don't understand why Nigerians like to use this excuse for not being able to accomplish anything. It's because the projects never run on time. They never stay within the budget. There is incompetence from conception. The purpose of many of those projects is actually not to provide infrastructure.
Right,
it is for political deals for people to get rich.
I want to know, how do you intend to get capital? You're saying you're going to stop foreign borrowing. What are you going to do? How do you raise
the venture capital is a very important policy initiative to pipeline capital into the Nigerian economy. It doesn't exist. The only place you get capital from now is banks. Over 90% of all the capital you see in the private sector in this country comes from banks, and that is way too much. It is imbalanced. In economies that function properly, you will have banks, you will have venture capital firms, you will have private equity, you will have leasing, and so many other things. In Nigeria, everything is banks. And then those banks are lending to just a small pool of people. Do you know that as of 2015, when I last checked the statistics, 77% of all bank lending in this country went to individuals and businesses in Lagos? 77%.
Maybe also the oil and gas sector.
Yes.
Creating liquidity ratio problems. One of the arguments you have in this book is that career politicians cannot save Nigeria.
No, they can't.
Well, I mean, are you not becoming a career politician yourself?
No.
That's one. Two, these people you call career politicians, since 1999, let's say that, you know, they've been using technocrats. They've been recruiting, you know, other people who are not career politicians.
That's a wonderful
Why is it that no difference has been made?
Yes, because the political leaders have the political legitimacy of being elected into public office, and they have failed to execute the responsibilities attached to that legitimacy. That is why appointing technocrats, brilliant technocrats, when a dunderhead is sitting on top of them, it's not going to solve any problem, because you bring the ideas, they will kill it, they will neuter it and nix it, because it doesn't flow into their own agenda. That is why I said, don't appoint me to anything, elect me president. I want to have the political legitimacy of that authority so that there will be no excuses.
So who is a career politician?
A career politician in the Nigerian parlance is what we know them to be. AGIP, any government in power, they are there. Whether it's PDP, whether it's APC, can you distinguish the PDP and the APC? Please, let's just go into a proper exercise. Can you distinguish the PDP and the APC? What is the difference between the two?
Well, first, their logos. One has a broom and the other has an
umbrella. You are the interviewee. I won't allow you to turn the table. I'll throw back the question.
So campaigns have started in earnest. Let me ask you, are you beginning to feel the pressure? And you seem to have something against campaign trails and the paraphernalia that goes with it. So what is your campaign trail going to be like? Are you going to talk?
Well, first of all, you should know that I have not stolen any government funds. So I don't have the billions and billions of naira of the political industrial complex who set up stages and dance and give you promises and everybody goes home and poverty continues for the next 4 years. I am running a quality campaign. Before the campaigns began officially, we were doing town halls. We will continue to do that. We may hold one rally there, here or there, but you're not going to see me holding rallies in 36 states. I can't afford it, and it's not necessarily the most efficient way to campaign. There are many other ways to campaign in the modern world. It is to bring your message to people in a way that they can actually see it and absorb it. That's what I'm focused on. And that's what first of all, we have launched the campaign by releasing a free e-copy of this book to every Nigerian so that they can see clearly what the vision is. That is part of campaigns. And there will be travels. I've gone to over 30 states in this country. I am one of the very few candidates in this presidential election who has actually been on the ground interacting with ordinary Nigerians.
Sorry, just a follow-up to that. So since you've been around and you're interacting, do you get a sense that Nigerians, because you also have a problem with Nigerians to deciphering what they want, you seem to have a problem with that, the Nigerians do not know or are not sure what they want. With your interactions, do you feel a sense of a paradigm shift coming soon? Are Nigerians ready to change the status quo?
We are in a historical moment. I want you to know that. And that is why I will be sworn in as the president of Nigeria on the 29th of May, 2019. No, don't even doubt it. Wow. It's going to happen. It's not if. And the reason is because Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, are tired of our recycled old politicians and their failure. The only people who don't know this are the recycled old politicians of the PDP and the APC, the fake change APC and the bureau de change PDP. You know, when you go to a political convention and people are trading in dollars, you know that they're truly disconnected from reality. Well, that's...
You were not there. You are reporting hearsay.
Okay, let's say allegedly or reportedly trading in dollars, you know. So there is a historical moment, and it comes for every country at different times. When communism fell, there was a historical moment. Nobody believed it would happen. Suddenly, the Berlin Wall fell. Lots of things began to happen. So in America, we saw someone like Obama become president, a black man. Nobody thought it was possible. It happened. We saw Donald Trump win against all odds. We saw Emmanuel Macron. When we think that in Nigeria we are immune from such processes or such shifts, we deceive ourselves. A historical moment is coming in this country. That is one of the reasons why you have seen so many presidential candidates. It never happened in 2015. If I had run, this is the time. It is time.
This book is 259 pages.
Yes.
And is your main campaign material.
Yes.
In a country where most people don't like to read serious stuff, what gives you the assurance that young Nigerians will take the time to read 259 pages of...
Good point. It's in 25 visions. You can go and look at the vision that is of interest to you. Also, we have summarized it and we are circulating it on our website and things like that. So we have a summary of it. It's not just the book. If you want to read the book, you're welcome. But if you don't, we have a summary document of the vision.
I've seen you in some videos dancing shaku shaku. I think in one instance it was a coupe challenge you were trying and all of that. So are we likely to have a dancing president? Do you win?
Well, I mean...
I see you like to dance.
I like to connect with people. That's the truth. I love the Nigerian people. And so when I go down into the marketplace, I can be passing with my group and we're passing a store and the music is, hey, we just get down to it straight away. And as you saw in one of the videos, and when I go to radio stations, when we finish, what's your favorite music? We begin to, so it's all part of the social interaction that lightens the moment against the background of the very serious issues that face our country.
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley Moghalu, for being part of the morning show.
Thank you.
The second time. I'm sure we'll invite you again.
Thank you for having me.
And maybe when you become president,
I'll be happy to
grant us a special interview.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeni will join us to review some of the top stories on today's newspapers. Do stay with us.